Hello everyone, my name is Stevie Alas. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. My presentation is on Chapter 2, which is Creationism. The main focus of Chapter 2 is the debate between Charles Darwin's evolution through natural selection and the design theory. Sober defines natural selection as a heritable variation in fitness, which I think is a really good way of describing it. And the design theory is the claim that living complex organisms are the product of an intelligent designer or engineer. And in this case, the designer is God. Sober uses William Paley's watch analogy to explain design theory. The analogy says that, let's say you find a watch on the ground, and you try and figure out how the watch could have occurred there, and you come up with two different hypotheses. One that says that the watch had occurred through random physical processes, which would be evolution, or two, that the watch occurred because an intelligent being made it, which is the design theory. And through abduction, the second hypothesis is more likely to occur. The argument is logical, and it can be applied to the design theory versus evolution. However, the major problem that I have with this is that it assumes a similarity between watches, which are mechanical, inanimate objects, and organisms, which are living, complex beings. And I believe that claiming these are similar is a pretty large stretch. And I think that the argument and the analogy fall apart because of this. So with Paley's analogy failing and the design theory failing as well, the creationists propose the idea that God is a trickster. And what this argument is saying is that God designed complex organisms in such a way that it would seem as though they had evolved, when in actuality it was just by design. Sober argues using Karl Popper's falsifiability concept and says that God as a trickster is unscientific. And he writes that unscientific claims are compatible with all observations. Essentially, any observation we make about anything can be explained away with God made it that way. And this removes any need or possibility for scientific or philosophical inquiry. And arguing in this way reminds me of when a kid asks the parent, why? And then the parent only replies with, because I said so. And I do agree with Sober that this argument is unscientific, and therefore it loses a lot of its power. And another way that you could take more power away from it is by saying that God, by definition, is good. That seems to be like the common definition of God. However, as Sober explains, God being a trickster has no contradiction. And initially I had believed Sober was wrong in this because I was under the impression that the definition of God is someone who is supremely good. However, upon doing more research, I learned otherwise. And I found the definition by M. Bowyer Stewart in his journal entry in the Harvard Theological Review very compelling. And he has two definitions for God. He said, God is the reality underlying nature. So essentially, he created nature, and God is supremely good. And he also makes the argument that to say God is good is to say that the universe and nature is innately good. However, as we can see, there are natural disasters like hurricanes and tornadoes in nature which seem bad. So nature in that sense is not good, and therefore God is also not good. Or rather, he has no requirements or responsibility to be good. I think that people often confuse the founders of a religion, like Jesus or Muhammad, who are innately good, and confuse them with God. However, they're different, and this means that there is no reason that God must be necessarily good. And to clarify, I'm not trying to say that God is not good or that he is evil. Rather, I'm trying to support Sober's claim that God, being a trickster, has no contradiction because there's no reason or requirements or responsibilities for God to be good. However, because of the argument being unscientific and essentially being because I said so, I still find the argument problematic in that sense. To conclude my presentation, I want to leave off with two questions that had come up while I was doing the reading and doing research for this presentation. And the first is, what is the definition of God? Initially, I thought God was supremely good, omnipotent, and omniscient. However, upon reading different articles in different journals, I'm starting to have a new perspective on what the definition actually is. And I'm curious to see what other people's definition is as well. And my second question is nature good or bad, or is it neither? If we look at Stewart's argument that says nature has all of these natural disasters and those are considered bad, then is nature bad, or is it good, or is it just both? So I'm curious to see what other people have in terms of answering these two questions. And that's all I have. Thank you for listening.